with a big stand like Stone Cold with a few beers. Play the game, I end the game, I'm champion and I'm Triple H. Undertaker, I'm your maker, bury the brother like Kane. Ooh, 1-3, hit the tombstone, hit the choke slam on face. Ooh, yeah, like a macho heel, turn like a muscle. If you sell a lot of tomatoes, I'ma keep a couple models. Ooh, and you may call me HBK when I'm tuning up the band, you best be getting in my way. Ooh, yeah, I'm degenerate, I love it, yes, I love it. If you ain't down with that, then I got two as well, you suck it. Too sweet, put your fangs.
Welcome everyone to your longest running Australian wrestling podcast, WRA Australia. I'm your host, Todd Eastman. Good to be back again this week with another great guest. But I know I haven't been able to say this a lot, but I hope you got out and watched some wrestling, Australian wrestling this past weekend, because I know there was some good stuff. If you couldn't get out to live shows around the country, there was some good stuff that you could see on streaming services all over the place. You had Deathmatch Down Under debuted their first show, the Wolf show. PCW had their Summer Series show. Two really good shows for two very different sort of markets. Also, I did really enjoy the Deathmatch Down Under show. Not like I'm not a big proponent of deathmatch wrestling, so those matches weren't exactly for me. But the undercard, I really did enjoy some of those matches, especially our guest last week, Richie Taylor and Tommy Knight. Really did enjoy that show, that match. So really well done to the Deathmatch Down Under crew. And also a character on there, Mr. Wrestling, who I really did enjoy. And I think if booked right, he could be the biggest heel in that company in a very short amount of time. It's just the right character that would get under the skin of the deathmatch fans. PCW as well. Some really good workers out of there. Of course, everyone knows Royce Chambers, one of the best up-and-coming guys in the country. Really did put a good showing out there in his match. That whole card I really did enjoy. It was a very good card. I don't know what I'm saying right now. Anyway, I did. If you get the chance, go to the Fight app, purchase Summer Series, check it out for PCW. Go to independentwrestlingtv.com or .tv. I can't remember what it is. Just Independent Wrestling Television. Look it up on Facebook on Google, and it'll send you to the site. Go and purchase Deathmatch Down Under and watch their show because that was a good show as well. My guest this week works for IWA, PWA, Newcastle Pro. One of the key guys behind the House of Free Fighting in Newey Pro. His name is Headhunter Rig. We have a good old chat about the stuff, especially because I love the fact that working with IWA, they do those tours of like Central Coast towns and Mid-North Coast towns and all that sort of stuff. Sort of really old school sort of way of wrestling, and I love that. So we do get into a bit of that and a lot of other stuff. But first, here is Views from the East, right here on WRA Australia. On this episode of Views from the East, just want to bring up some stuff. This is mainly for the workers, I guess, than actual fans watching it, listening at home, or watching at home. I like to talk about wrestling with blinders on, because basically for the show that I went and saw Venom Pro Wrestling for the first time a couple of weeks ago. First time, of course, since the COVID lockdown and all of that. And I noticed in a lot of the matches, and I'm not sure if it was just because nobody has worked for the past year or whatever it was, but it really did seem like a lot of the guys and girls that were out there were wrestling with blinders on, sort of like this is my match, this is what I have to do, this is all of that. And I think if it's done just because that you hadn't worked for a while, then that's fair enough. But if it's not, I think you're missing the biggest part of the wrestling and biggest part of a match, and that is working the crowd and just bringing the crowd in to your match. Now, I know some of the more inexperienced guys are probably worried about like hitting their spots and doing that sort of thing in their matches. And you've got to remember the reason you're out there is for the fans. Faces should be aiming to have the fans thinking that they're in his or her corner against the heel. So if the face wins, the crowd wins. You need to involve the fans. Like it could be as simple as just engaging them. Like don't ignore a reaction because you're supposed to be doing something right now. Like react to the crowd, react to that guy in the seat. Like one of these sort of things, like just so he knows that you can hear him. The worst thing that you can do is have it so a crowd doesn't know that they can hear you, or that you can hear them, I should say. Because then that stops them from wanting to cheer. Because if you're not reacting to a cheer, then why would they continue to get behind you? Why would they continue to want you to win if you're ignoring them? And for the heel, I think that you should be immediately putting yourself in between the fans and the babyface. So like you're gonna be like, oh, this is your guy, bang, that's for you, because this is you brought this on, bang. Oh, I thought this guy was good. What is he gonna do? Bang. Invite the crowd to boo, invite the crowd to want this babyface to come back and kick your ass, because that's your job when you're out there, is to get that babyface over, to get yourself over as being hated, but more to get that babyface over so the crowd loves him. The crowd need him to get that comeuppance on you and get that win. As much as it is important to piece together and execute the moves, it's also important to remember the moves in between the moves, and that is working the crowd and engaging the crowd. And you'll find half the time that if you can engage a crowd and get a crowd behind you and get a crowd in your match, you won't have to do as much stuff to get over with the crowd, because you will be already having them buy anything you want to sell them. Anyway, that is it for this Views of the East. That's my opinion, and you're entitled to it. And right now, Headhunter Rig are here on Wrestle Radio Australia. I am joined by the Chief, Headhunter Rig. How are you doing tonight, mate?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. Getting back into the swing of things, I see in old New South Wales. Were you just on the latest IWA thing that was happening, the tourish thing?
Yeah, we were on the IWA Summer Meltdown tour. I think that was just early first week of January. Really good to be back. It's been a while. I haven't seen all the boys and the girls, so it was good to catch up. Everyone has good matches, and the crowds, I think that's the first wrestling they've had in a year as well. So that was pretty rowdy to have it back as well.
I was going to say that it must feel good just to, like, even when wrestling was in its full swing, to go on the sort of the tours where you're doing night after night after night. That's something that a lot of guys probably dream about doing, and you guys are doing it up around. Is it like the country of New South Wales country area that you're covering?
Summer Meltdown tour is the coast. So we head up Foster, Tuncurry, Sawtell way.
Ah, yeah. See, I'm from Wingham.
Oh, true. Right. Okay.
Yeah. That's where I grew up before I moved to Adelaide. I'm a Wingham boy.
Right. Yeah. The Summer Meltdown tour is along the coast. And then during the year, we'll do some country and rural tours like Dubbo and Forbes and Tamworth and whatnot.
Because IWA are really, they're sort of underrated, but they draw really well everywhere they go. I think it's more because they don't have a sort of like a home base of where regular shows run out of, that they maybe get overlooked as a promotion.
Yeah, I feel that as well sometimes, but they're sort of getting towards regular shows now at St John's Park Bowling Club, which is good for them, and they're starting to draw bigger numbers there, and the crowd's getting a bit more into it and rowdy. When they first started having a few shows there, it was a bit dull at times, but as we spoke about, the summer tours and I think it's like the Wild West tours out Dubbo and whatnot, they're the crowds that are just insane. Like, once again, they're going to get wrestling once a year. Yeah. So when they do get it, they're all about it.
Yeah, you mentioned like once a year sort of thing, and you sort of like you're hitting those regions sort of not even, well, I suppose semi-regularly. So you sort of get, like, you might only hit them once every now and then, but they know the guys that are going to be there when you guys rock up. So it's sort of like you're building a fan base, but you're also creating a want to see you again by leaving it so far apart.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's weird to say, but it's like a once a year fan base, because sometimes I have people message like my social medias and they'll say, "Oh, are you coming back to Tamworth this year? We love seeing you guys in IWA last year." Like it's good to know, because that keeps people buying more tickets and bringing us back the year after year.
Yeah, because it must just be. I can't even imagine what that's like. Just going to different towns, setting up, having a show. It's very old school carny sort of like, and I love that. Just it reminds me so much of like reading about like the old wrestling roots, and especially even like when you listen to podcasts with like Cornette and Jim Ross, and they talk about the way they used to go to Shreveport, then they go to blah blah, and then they go to blah blah next night. That's basically what you guys are doing in like the mid-north coast of Australia.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we love it. We absolutely love it. Yeah.
Oh, geez. So come off. I'm guessing because no one's had anything for ages, it would have been a wildly successful tour for you guys. Was it because I'm not even too sure how did COVID restrictions like affect those areas, or was it sort of like okay because nothing's really happening up on the coast sort of thing?
Yeah, I think they were fine cases wise, and then towards when the tour went along, they were pretty clear of everything. And then there was only one town on tour that were a bit sus, because there was probably the majority of the people on tour coming from the Sydney area, so they were just a bit skeptical on who they wanted to bring in and whatnot. But a few of the people got tests and whatnot, so there was nothing they could really put against us. We all had masks on during ring crew and before and after the shows. It was super professionally set up by IWA. So yeah, hats off to them.
That's great. Well, that's, I suppose nowadays, if you want to sort of start doing that stuff again, these are the new world, the new normal, I guess, is what everyone says that we have to sort of do until the vaccine gets around the country world, the countrywide, and everyone seems to be clear of this shit. We sort of have to take these precautions to make sure we can still do what we all love doing.
Yeah, for sure. That's it. And hopefully like things get back to normal soon, but I don't know, like no one knows, but yeah, it'd be nice to get it back to normal.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Well, you guys in Newcastle as well, with you're not really going back to the Bowls Club shows, are you? So it's sort of like all the House of Free Fighting shows.
Yeah, so right now there's no sort of our big old shows at the bowling clubs and whatnot. I think they're just sort of stepping back for now because of COVID. But that means we get to run our shows at the House of Free Fighting, the Who's parties and whatnot. So that's good, and gives people to get a chance to get back in the ring and get back in the swing of things.
Yeah, that's where like you guys and Riot City Wrestling, and I guess even PCW for a sort of a way, you've got that training facility where there's enough room that you can set up some chairs to have a crowd there, so you can start getting them back into a normal routine sort of thing. If you can't have those big shows in the halls, you can do it at the thing and maybe get 75 to 100 people. Maybe I'm not sure how your setup is, but you can get that, so you can sort of start getting the ball rolling. So when everything gets back to normal, you guys are ready to roll like full speed. Yeah,
definitely. And it's good to shake the ring rust off as well, especially with everyone having close to a year off. But like, as you mentioned, we can only have, I think at the Hoose anyway, our capacity is 75 people, plus like a certain number of staff we can have there as well. And I just got the message before we started this, like we smacked the 75, so the next Hoose show will be sold out, which is always good news.
If anything, and I know this, it always sounds terrible to say, the fact that everything's been restricted means the tickets are more sought after. It makes it almost like an exclusive thing. If you're not cool enough to get the tickets early enough, you're just going to miss out.
Definitely, yeah.
So
which is good. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so when you do eventually go to one of the bigger venues, they're possibly going to sell out really quick as well, because oh shit, every one of the house shows sell out. I better get this ticket quickly because I just don't know how many extra people are going to want to come, especially with Newey, because Newey's, they're is it your Halloween, the Rumble shows?
Yeah, so the two biggest shows of the year would probably be the Rumble and the Halliversary show.
Yeah. The Rumble show is the one that I've like. If there's a show that I'd like to get down in Newey to see, it would be the Rumble shows because I always hear about them. And I think was it last year's was on OVO.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, I'd love to actually go down to see those shows because I'm a massive Rumble mark to start with, and just the way that you guys put on the show, how fun it seems like you just want to be there for that.
Yeah, I think just for so many years now, we've had the continuous draw of we keep the card very similar, not in the people that are on it, but the structure of it. So we've got always going to have the champion versus champion match because obviously the champions aren't in the Rumble. So obviously the Rumble is going to be the main event, but we always have champion versus champion. But it's been good over the last year or so. Well, not probably. I think it was 2019, the big Rumble, the one you might have been talking about. Yeah. We got to have the three champions because we introduced the women's championship. So it was all three champions in the match together, which was pretty crazy.
That's right. Was it Wendy's, Full Force, and Matt Diamond? Off the top of my head,
I believe so. Correct me. Yeah, I could be wrong, but that sounds pretty similar. Yeah,
which is amazing for me because I the amount of hits I've taken on the head. We'll talk about yourself for a bit, mate. Where did you first come up with the whole Headhunter Rig sort of idea? Because it's different to everything that I've seen sort of around.
Yeah, it was really weird how it sort of come about. It was just I was doing the trucker gimmick before that, just the truck driver, wasn't working, wasn't feeling it, didn't think I could go the mile with it and could connect with the crowds and whatnot. And there was sort of like I think it was like a page that got sent through one of our staff pages that people wanted a few wrestlers to go to China to you wouldn't see it happen these days.
No,
but,
no.
They wanted like a few wrestlers to go to China and wrestle there. Well, that's what we thought it was, and then it turns out they wanted people to go there to teach wrestling, but we didn't know the language and everything, so we couldn't really do that. And it was myself and Carter Deems. We were gonna actually put our hands up. I think it was only like a 3-month stint or something. We were gonna put our hands up just for experience wise. And then once we found out we were going to be the ones teaching, we definitely weren't in the right experience levels to be doing that. And then we said if we were going to go over there, we'd have to do something quite Australian and outbacky or whatnot. And then we sort of come up with the Headhunters gimmick. And then that sort of stayed with us. Once we put it on shows, I think we debuted at an IWA tour show. It sort of stayed with us for a bit and we tagged. We had plenty of fun, and then he sort of went off to do his own thing, and I just sort of stuck with it. I just felt comfortable with it, and it's one of the things as soon as I come out the curtain, people know what it was. So it was super easy to get over and play around with, and really easy to evolve over the years.
What I like about you is that your style is it's very believable. Like everything, like your striking's very crisp. It's very like everything that you do seems impactful. Like that cannonball finish is, I think, one of the best cannonballs I've seen flat out. Is that something that you've sort of really worked on to that character is a hard guy? So everything I do, I'm not going to be dainty. I'm not going to try all these little fancy flips and that. I'm just going to go out there and just be like blood nose, like, you know what I mean? I want to say slobber knocker, but I don't want to do JR.
Yeah, right. No, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's sort of like that. And I sort of, when I look at the character on paper, I don't see flipping around the ring and bouncing off the ropes. And I really just seem like down and dirty, punch in the face. And that's sort of what I started off with, and now I can sort of evolve a bit more and fit new things in and try new styles and see what works well with the crowds. But yeah, when it comes to the cannonball, I used to just use that randomly in my matches here and there, and it was a horrible move. I just get to the corner and sort of roll into them. And I honestly don't know. You could probably ask someone who's good with matches and memory what the first match was where I really hit the big one from where I jumped from center ring and tuck into the ball. But it just sort of come out of nowhere. I think it was one of the ones I hit it, got a huge reaction, and realized at the time I was starting to put on a bit more size. So when there's over 100 kilos jumping from the middle of the ring, landing on someone in the corner, I think it's like quite a believable finish, as you said.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because most everyone else who uses the cannonball, it's almost like a transition move from a whip or something like that, where you've sort of like the way you hit it makes it so believable as a finish. I remember the first time I saw it, I was just going, oh, that's how they're supposed to be hit, because you're trying to throw yourself with as much force into the guy as possible. And especially nowadays, I find, like, I see when a lot of these guys, they do a whip, and even if they run in for a clothesline, it's like they're not running in at full force. Everything seems like 3/4 speed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, understandable.
And that's for when you do yours, it's like you obviously care, but in the moment in the character, you don't give a fuck about this guy. You're just gonna kill him, which is, it just makes it perfect.
You know, it's hard for some of the boys sometimes when like we'll get there and we'll the finish today is probably going to be the cannonball, and they might be a bit skeptical on how it's going to work out and whatnot. But I always say for them, I always have things up my sleeve if people aren't comfortable with it and whatnot. But yeah, it's a lot of weight coming onto your chest at once. But you're lucky sometimes with the ropes, have got a bit of spring there and whatnot. They might help the impact. But then again, it's 110 kilos coming from about just above the height of the top rope from the middle of the ring as well, and it's all coming onto the chest and the head area. So it's a pretty big blow.
The thing that strikes me about you, and it doesn't annoy me, but it sort of does, is why aren't you out there more? Like I just don't get to see you. Is it because you're flat out with the IWA tours? Is it that you're flat out with House of Free Fighting, and also trying to maybe crack to be a regular on the PWA Black Label shows? Or is that more than it is that you haven't tried to break into like a Melbourne or an Adelaide? Or because I'm pretty sure the boys in Right City would love to have you down. I know Cree especially loves your work.
Yeah. It's a bit of a 50-50 thing, really. Like, I just don't know why I haven't just sort of taken the steps to put my foot in the door and jump on a plane and go somewhere. Like sometimes it might be because of out of wrestling work, or just because I think it was in 2019, probably, I could be wrong here, but like 30, maybe 39, 40 of the 52 weeks in a year, I had shows on. And obviously I can't complain. The boys back in the day used to bloody be on the road. What was it? 200 and some days a year.
Yeah.
But I'm only talking. But I mean, I'd love to travel to everybody state there is we have in the country. Obviously right now I'm not going to go overseas or anything, but I'm always open to go somewhere else and test out new crowds and meet new people and wrestle new people. So it's annoying to me as well that I haven't been there. But hopefully once we get back into the swing of things, I'd love to get out there and show everyone what I got.
Because it's only when because I know all your stuff's on with Newy Pro and all that are on. I don't know if they still are, but they were on OVO.
I don't know what happened with OVO. Yeah, it should be or might be gone.
Yeah, but normally, like if I'm going to interview a guy, I'll sit down, maybe YouTube, and watch a couple of his matches. I couldn't find anything of yours. I'm like, that annoys me, because the match that really rings in my head that I remember watching is the one I watched live, the PWA show.
Right.
And I think that's when I was like, why isn't this dude everywhere? He's just got such a presence in that ring. And I was like, why isn't he being used more? And then obviously being that you're booked bloody 30 odd weeks of the year, that's a pretty good explanation.
Which PWA match was that one?
I think it was the 4 or 5 way.
Cool. Yeah. Was it the Coliseum one?
Yeah, with Steph. And
cool. Yeah, good match.
Yeah. So that's that was when it caught my eye. I'm like, because I remember Cree raving about you when I was down in Adelaide. We were hanging out, and he was just raving about you, because he's like, that's a guy you've got to get on the show. And I'm like, yep, for sure I will. And of course, friend of mine, completely forgot. But then when, like, again, watching you in PWA, I'm like, yes, this guy Cree's right. He's got he knows what's going on. So how long have you actually been working now?
I'm gonna say, just to be safe, so I'm not overshooting myself here, probably like 4.5 years on shows, maybe like 5.5 training. I guess we take a year off shows because of what happened last year, but other than that, it's probably, I'm going to say 4.5, 5 years on shows, but maybe 2.5 with the new sort of shtick and gimmick and whatnot, whatever you call it these days.
And you would have trained, because it's Newy Pro, you probably would have trained a fair bit before you even hit shows. Because I don't think I don't think new guys understand that that's like back in the day, you trained for like 6 to 8 to maybe a year before even debuting on a show, because they want to make sure you're cherry ripe. Because I've always said, well, I always say, like, it's really hard to make a second first impression.
Definitely.
So you want to make that first impression where you're already, you don't have to be polished, but you have to be like where people can see this kid's got something.
Yeah. We could probably do a whole podcast on how important it is to train before you debut, because I know there's plenty of places out there that'll just have people train for 2 weeks and they'll be on the next show they got coming up. But I know it's something at Newcastle, how important it is to train, be safe, have something that crowds can relate to, look after the people you're wrestling with. And I think it was at least maybe a year and a half before I was on a show, and that was just basically a training show. I wasn't on the main Newcastle Pro shows for maybe 2 years. And that's a credit to the roster of how good they are and how hard it is to get a spot. Because I know there's close to 20 people now like chomping at my toes wanting to get on the shows, and it just makes everyone work a bit harder.
That's the same thing with a good mate of mine up here, Xander Sullivan's just moved to Sydney, and he's training he was training with PWA. And I said to him when he left, because when he left here, he was like mid-card champion, moving his way up into like that main event spot sort of area. And I said to him, don't expect to go to PWA and start on shows straight away, because that shit is not going to happen. I don't care what you've done before. They're going to put you through training. Yeah. So like, keep your head down, work hard, and you'll eventually get some shots, but don't just expect to be put in the same spot you're here. You're in where you are here, because you're basically starting from scratch. And I don't think kids understand that mainly nowadays. I think they just think they rock up and that's it. I've done a lesson. I should be right now, shouldn't I? Why aren't I already why aren't I further up on the card? Why aren't I why don't I have a match already? What's going on?
Yeah, you have a few people come in on their first day and they think they're gonna jump straight in the ring and buy a pair of boots and be on the next show, but it's so much more than that. I think something that Hoffman has really put over over the last like many years that I've been there is to get in the ring is a privilege. So you got to work towards it, and to be on a show, like, it's the epitome of paying your dues and rocking up and helping with the crew and helping with everything behind the scenes. Because if you're just going to rock up and stand there and act like you're on shows when you're not, you're going to get nowhere.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like 99% of getting noticed is doing the small stuff, doing the little things, helping out as much as you possibly can. I remember when I first started training in Adelaide, I was doing everything. I'd rock up, I'd set up the chairs. After we'd set up the ring, we'd set up the merch table, we'd do all of that stuff. And then it was like, what are you doing now? We'll go upstairs and watch the hard cam.
Yeah.
Just do it. You just do it. You pay. I know it sounds, people are like, oh, you shouldn't have, but everyone should pay their dues, because that's how you realize that even though wrestling seems like an individual sport, it's really a team. Yeah, it's really a team sport. And I think that gets lost on some of these guys, where they just think that I need to impress, I need to do this, no, you need to show that you're a valued member of the team, and you'll do what you need to do to get to the goal of putting on the best possible show.
Yeah, definitely. It could be as you said, it could be the littlest job. Like you've set up the chairs, you're helping out with the merch, and yeah, as you said, you might just have to go upstairs and keep an eye on the hard cam, or see if anyone needs a hand on the music or the lighting. And definitely another one that we've really been putting forward recently is, if you don't have a skill, for example, you don't know how to do the lights, or you'd like to learn how to build like a huge lighting rig or something. It's just putting your hand up and wanting to learn rather than standing back and not learning any new skills, heading into like the start of your wrestling journey.
Yeah. For me, this is back in the day when we had our AV guy leave. And then there was a good while there for about 2 or 3 months where there was no promos, there was no anything because the guy there was nowhere to do it. So I literally bought an iPad and went, I'll just teach myself.
Yeah.
I'll go and film promos. I'll try and come together. If they look shit, I won't use them. If they look all right, we can use them. And then I made myself a little bit more. I like because I'm not a wrestler, I need to add different strings or put different tools in my own toolbox.
Yeah.
It's just
definitely having a good person to have in the crew is someone who might not be a wrestler. They might just be there to help out and want to be part of the crew. And if they've got a skill that none of us have, like they're like a vital part of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why like it annoys me when you see some people at shows sort of just ignore those people that are working, doing those little jobs. You know, they're not wrestlers. They're just there to help out. It really annoys me when you don't go, you see people just ignore them or not say hi, or like if it weren't for those people, you wouldn't be able to do what you're doing.
For sure. Yeah, you're right.
Is that something that you sort of really input into the students at the House of Free Fighting? Because I know you work out a fair bit there, like helping out around the place. Is that something that really gets instilled over there with Hoffman, of course, leading the sort of the way to start with?
Yeah, definitely. It's as we mentioned, like you put in the work and it doesn't go unnoticed. Probably about 2 or 3 times a year, we'll pull all the new guys in one by one into the office and gives them some constructive feedback and let them know how they're going, and they can tell us is there anything that we could do better. Or so we're really sort of working on a good culture that's going to help the guys come up over the next few years and make their way onto the Who shows, and then obviously moving up to the main roster of Newey.
Yeah, that's really important, like bringing them in and just going, this is because a lot of times that I speak for when I was a rookie, there was a lot of times there where I was just plugging away and I didn't know if I was doing anything wrong. I know if I was doing something wrong because I was getting told. It's not a matter of doing something wrong, it's a matter of not doing something right.
Yeah.
Or if there's something that you're missing.
Yeah.
And I think it's like you said, it's important to have to sit down and go, you're doing this really well, you're doing this really well, you need to work on this.
Yeah, it's like if I was to come back from a match and there was someone there with 10 times more experience than me and they were happy enough to give me some advice and some feedback, that's just sort of, I'll take that. So that's what it is for the new guys taking it from us, even if it's not to do with wrestling, it's to do with something else or their training or how they're performing on the ring crew and whatnot. It's just a little bits of feedback. I think it helps people reassure that they are being looked after and they everything they do doesn't go unnoticed, and it sort of keeps them motivated, and it'll push them further and train harder, and they'll be on shows before they know it.
I think there was a quote I read from Rip Rogers. It's like, when I yell at you after a match, it's not because I don't like you, it's because I care about you. If I stop yelling at you after a match, it's because I've given up.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair. I believe it. Yeah.
So I know it's hard to sort of talk about like career goals at the moment because everything is up in the air when it comes to doing all sort of that. But is there something that an end goal for you at the moment for what you want to do with your career, or is it a matter of that you want to stay in Australia and sort of build up Newey Pro and House of Free Fighting as much as you can? It's because it's a weird time to ask that, I know, but it's sort of like
it's pretty hard, but like obviously I'd love to see Australia was on the brink of just like bursting through, and everyone knows what it's about, and it sucks that it sort of got taken away from us. But of course, I'd love to get it back to there. I'd love more eyes on Newey Pro. And like, obviously, I can't say much at the moment, but like, there's some big things in the works for us, and obviously the House of Free Fighting. Like, if it's not the House of Free Fighting, it's going to be like the PWA Academy. They're like the 2 schools in New South Wales. They're like the top-notch schools. So to get more eyes on them is probably like a good goal. Another thing, like, it'd be good to travel overseas, a few countries, work here, there, and everywhere. Like, no specific names really. But just getting experience and wrestling new people, super end goal. Like, I mean, everyone would like to be picked up by a big company. But it's just sort of who would take me and where they think I'd fit in. And I mean, I just love wrestling. So wherever someone would pick me up and I jump in and we come to a good enough deal, then I'd be super keen to jump on board with a top end company.
So I've noticed too, it's almost like you're sort of evolving the gimmick a little bit more now. Like I've noticed with you got the head taped and sort of like a different gear. So is that more like you're heading more into like a rugby sort of guy gimmick, or because as soon as I saw the headband, I'm like, that's what I used to wear when I played rugby.
Yeah, I sort of just threw it on one time for just a training match, I think, while we were sort of locked down and whatnot. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool, and I sort of get to evolve the character a bit more because obviously the Headhunter stuff was great, and I'll forever keep that because it's just sort of what helped me break through. But it's just sort of trying new gear. Like it might get 6 months down the road and I won't like the head tape anymore, but sort of working with the Chief name and trying to figure out how I want to go down that path. And it's just sort of fun to work around and try new gear and see what's comfortable. And it's all about sort of when I come through the curtain and whatnot, see what people are reacting to and see if they can understand what I'm trying to get over to them and see what stories I want to tell and whatnot.
Yeah, you're using the name Chief in Newcastle too, mate. You're looking for heat too.
Yeah, definitely. I did choose the name after the Chief, so hopefully I get to do some sort of promo or something with him in the future.
I was lucky enough to meet him back when I was 16.
Lovely guy.
Just and a mountain of a dude. Like I couldn't believe how big he was. When I was 15, I played under 16s for South Australia rugby league. And we did our national carnival was in Newcastle. And the perk we got was on the Friday night. The Friday night game was Newcastle, Canberra. Nice. So we got to go to Marathon Stadium and do a lap of the stadium. And then we got to go.
What year was that?
91. So that was that was Chief. But then also in Canberra was Mal, Laurie, Ricky Stewart, all of those boys as well. It was like I've never seen a dude bigger than Mal Manega in my life. Yeah. Still, I don't know if that's because I was only little or what, but yeah, Paul Harrigan, one of the nicest guys you could meet, and just a mountain. So like following that Chief name in Newcastle, it's either going to get you loved or get you massive hate, one or the other.
Yeah, it's definitely big shoes to fill. I'd love to cross paths with him and figure out something to do with the Chief name. If it was just a photo or a video or something like that, it'd be I'm definitely paying homage to the name, not going against it.
Do you work primarily heel, or is it if you sort of moved into babyface territory?
So mostly heel if it's a PWA or IWA show, but I'll probably do babyface or whatever in Newcastle and the Hoos. That's just sort of because I'm starting to get billed from Newcastle more now, and it's just such a close knit town, and everybody comes together, and they sort of get behind the Newcastle locals rather than the people coming in from elsewhere. And so Newcastle and Hoos is very, very much a babyface company for me.
So how do you find that switching from one to the other for different companies?
Pretty easy, and I just it depends on where I'm going and what the companies and the promoters want from me on the night, I guess. But I enjoy doing the heel, especially on the tours. It's super easy to get heat. I mean, you just tell them that their town's the worst one you've ever been to, and they'll be out of the building. So but yeah, it's good to try new things, especially on those tours as a heel. But then again, being a baby sometimes is difficult. I think it's much easier to make someone hate you than it is to like you. Mm-hmm. So definitely working as a baby is challenging at times, especially when I come out the curtain. I don't look like someone who people would want to get up and clap for and whatnot. I feel as though if they see me work and they understand what I'm doing and whatnot, they might get behind me. And so it might take me a few shows to connect with the crowd just because of the character and the vibe that I'm giving off. But yeah, I mean, I can't really choose a favorite because I've had some of my best matches work in both baby and heel.
I guess sort of like the Rig character as a face would be a lot of the sort of stone coldish sort of character where just like you're that working class hard guy, you'll fight for what you believe in, yada yada yada, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I have heard that a bit with the face stuff. A bit of a, I mean, it's a big comparison. I'm definitely not. But yeah, I do get what people say when they mention it. I mean, yeah, it's huge. I love to take on that challenge of such a big name. But yeah, I do understand where they're coming from.
And like I'm doing a thing earlier in the show. I haven't actually recorded it yet. I do like a little commentary sometimes about stuff I've noticed or yada yada. And this week's one is about sort of like not just the younger guys, but also some of the more experienced guys almost having, and I don't know if this is the fact that they're just getting back into the swing of things or what it is, but they sort of have that blinders on when they wrestle. They're not really worried about the crowd. It's sort of like, this is my match. This is what I have to do. That sort of thing. How important is it to you to make a connection with that crowd during the match? Because I know for me, like when I work, because I'm a manager, so my whole shtick is interacting with the crowd. So for me, it's just always come naturally. But I just noticed, especially when I went and saw a show a couple of weeks ago, and all of those guys, I don't know if it's because, like I said, no one's been doing anything for a year and they're sort of getting back into the swing of things, or if it's the fact that they're just so focused on what their plan was, they forget that they're actually there to entertain the people that are out there, and they're focused on their match. How important is it to you to interact with the crowd, to get them into the match?
Yeah, I think it's super important for me, and I get super pissed off with myself if I come back after a match and I feel as though I haven't connected like I want to. That's one of the main things I sort of put on myself if I go out there and I feel as though I haven't connected or they didn't react to the things I wanted them to react to. Because if they're not into it, they're not going to buy a ticket and come back. That's the whole story of it. So, I mean, it's super important for me, and I try and drill it into the people that I'm wrestling as well. I said, let's get them to build up and let's react to this. And so yeah, if they're not reacting, I'm not happy at all.
And it's like it's I'm trying to the way I describe it. The best feeling in the world is when you can do something and you know the exact reaction you're about to get and you get it. And the worst feeling is when you're going for that reaction, you hold it on just that second too long, and it sort of like fizzles, and you're like, "Yep, I knew I did those. If it was just a second earlier, I would have been fine."
There's a story from one of the Tamworth tours, and it was a 6-man match, and I think it was myself, Chris Abbott, and Dazza versus Brad Alexander, Will Curtis, and Jackson Kelly. So we were the country boys, and they were from the North Shore. So obviously they were hated in Tamworth. And we had this like huge long match that went for ages. And then towards the end, like I think Dazza and Brad went through like a big barn door or a table or something. And then I gave Will Curtis a last ride off the stage into like the big electrical pit off the side, like very, very what you'd see on TV.
Yeah.
So we both went down. I did the big sit out, sort of bomb with him. Crickets. No one cared about it. And we're both just sitting there like, just thinking, are you serious, bro? Like, if he's listening to this, he'll be cracking up. But yeah, we're just sitting there going, oh, man, they hated that. Like, I don't know why they didn't react to it, but we just done a huge powerbomb off the stage and they just sitting on their hands. So wasn't the day for them.
Well, a lot of times, like I know there are some crowds that just like a certain type of wrestling. Like I know if you go and work a supernova and you just work 80s style, you don't have to do much. As long as you're being a character and interacting with the crowd, they're going to eat it up. And then there are other crowds like that were like a PWA that would love for you to do a super technical chain wrestling sort of thing. I think it's a matter of reading the crowds. And I would imagine that like a Tamworth crowd would be more along the lines of almost a supernova crowd where you work that whole almost the 80s shtick and the crowd would still get behind it and get into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they were super into everything we were doing, and I mean, I don't know, we were sort of baffled when we got backstage. We were going, what went wrong, or why didn't they react to that? I mean, they were enjoying all the dives and whatnot, but yeah, they just mustn't have cared for the powerbomb. But then another one, like we'd done a Newcastle Pro. I was asked to do a fundraiser years ago. I was very green, and I was put against Jay and Law, who's just like Aussie wrestling legend. And he come up for the show, and then it was supposed to be like a sold out fundraiser, and 6 people turned up. So we were just there going, oh shit, like what are we doing? And then him just being the genius that he is, just we went out there, and it was sort of scary for me because it was like one of the first times someone had said, we'll just talk out there. So I'm backstage just shit in the bed going, I'm going to forget everything and whatnot. But yeah, he went out there and we'd just play around a bit, and he'd ask the crowd what moves they want to see. So obviously they didn't know too much wrestling, so they might have wanted to see a stunner or a rock bottom or something. And then as soon as they yelled out, he'd go for it, and then he'd just put on a headlock instead. So it made them want it even more. And then he let me hit all those moves at the end, and they went home happy. So
beautiful.
Just the little things where he'd tease something that they really wanted, since they weren't like a huge wrestling crowd, but he'd let the babyface have it in the end. And yeah, it was just a little thing, and just huge learning experience.
Yeah, that right there is like storytelling on the fly. He's like, well, there's only 6 people. What am I going to do? We'll just do this.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. Yeah.
I remember like a story that Cree told me is that he worked OCW against Al Snow. And the whole day, Al was just like avoiding him. So he couldn't talk. They couldn't talk about the match. So here he is, like, this is a massive match. It's fucking, this is Al Snow, WWE guy. Apparently, just before they're about to go for the curtain, Al Snow looks at him and goes, do you know how to take a snowplow? He's like, yeah. He goes, all right, cool. We'll talk out there. And then just walked out.
Yes.
And Cree's like, I did not have a clue what was going to fucking happen, anything. Yeah. I was like, oh, no, I don't know. Yeah. How important is it to you, and do you teach at House of Free Fighting, sort of like that on the fly sort of wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important to get it in your brain, because just like that, there might be a big opportunity where they bring someone in that you haven't wrestled before that might be a bigger name, and that might be their style. They might want to say that. So sometimes, we might have to have like an on-the-fly training session, or just do some drills that train that include on-the-fly stuff. Because it is important, and sometimes things go wrong, and you need to think on the spot. So drilling it in at training is a big one.
Nothing annoys me more than like guys have planned a spot out, and the spot sort of, it doesn't work, but they just go back to that spot again. It's like, just move on, because you're pretty much right there. You're telling the people, this is what we planned. It went wrong. We're just going to do it again.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
So you can't really make many plans going forward. Who in Australia are those key guys that you would love to get in the ring and work with? Guys that you'd probably you'd probably learn something from and get something from if you work them.
Probably learning wise, I'd love to jump in with Creed. It's been a long time. We're good mates and whatnot. So yeah, me and him in the ring would be good fun. Probably Davis Storm as well. I chat to him every now and then. Great guy, always checks in on me, asks me how things going and vice versa and whatnot. So definitely jump in, a good experience.
I swear that guy looks after 98% of Australian wrestling. Because I know I get messages from him every month or so, just checking in, see how you're doing. I was like, I can't imagine how many more people he's doing that to. You've got a little calendar. It's the 5th. I better check on the rig, see how he's going.
Probably him. And then I'd like to wrestle, obviously, my coaches like Hoff and Bonds a bit more, because I haven't really had the chance to do that as much. And definitely doing a few more tags here and there, just getting the psychology of how I love tag team wrestling. but I've never really been a huge tag team wrestler. I've done obviously matches here and there, but I'd like to get more into it and try things here and there. Obviously, I'd love to keep my singles stuff, but if the opportunity arises, then I'd like to do some more tags and take on some pretty experienced tag teams in the country.
When I first started training, that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a singles wrestler. I just wanted to be a tag guy, because tag wrestling has always been my favorite. Like Half Foundation Rockers, Midnight Express, they were always the guys. Like Arn Anderson is my favorite wrestler.
Right.
So I was like, I've always wanted to do that. That's all. And finding a guy I could tag with that you could mesh with, and there's so much more I feel you can do psychology wise in tag team matches, because you got the 4 people plus you got 5 people with the ref. There's so much more you can do, like creatively, in that match as opposed to a singles match, that I think it adds. There's more to explore.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people, when you can play more around with the crowd and whatnot with the 4 and 5 people, it just makes people connect a bit more sometimes. So yeah, they're definitely lots of fun. I mean, lastly as well, like probably I wouldn't learn as much, but I'd probably help learn is a few of the new guys that are training now I'd like to work with. Just because I know I benefited so much when I was coming in, and I was wrestling people that have been wrestling for so many years more than I have. So there's a few guys that are training below us now that I think have plenty of potential, and I'd like to see how they go and help them out in their journeys and whatnot.
Yeah, like who are the guys that in like 2 or 3 years you can see sort of like in the spot you're in now? And so say you've moved up, and those guys will, because that's basically what wrestling is a progression. You move up. The more you work, the more you experience you get, the more you move up a card. Who are the guys that you see that in like 2 or 3 years could be in that sort of spot that you see have the potential?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I haven't been down to Sydney in a while to check out who's coming through the Pro Wrestling Academy, but at the House of Free Fighting, right now, probably the biggest name, I mean, I could put over all our guys, but probably the biggest names that are coming up and will make impacts probably on our big roster in the next year and a half would probably be Ben Braxton, who's working in CBK, Coastborn Killers right now with Tyson Reed. Braxton's doing crazy stuff, and he's always turning up to train, putting in the work. I mean, he's not that this next person is new, but like CJ Phoenix as well. He's been around, obviously, the business for ages, but he jumped into professional wrestling now. So he's been doing heaps of good stuff, and he's always impressing people when he comes out. We have a pretty newer guy as well, Scott Green. He's been doing really good stuff at training recently, and working on character and evolving a bit more and connecting with the crowd. So they're like 3 of the names of probably close to 20 that I could just continually put over with our training school. But they're 3 that stand out to me when I have a good think about it.
Yeah. Well, you obviously got a really good thing going at the House of Free Fighting in Newey, especially with the fact that you guys, it's not a competition at all. You sort of work with Pro Wrestling Australia, which is just, it's something that's needed. I feel that we all should work together, sort of thing. And it looks like everything in New South Wales is going really well, sort of starting up again. Your next match is what, the 13th of Feb?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, you got the Buccaneer.
The Buccaneer. Yeah.
I've got to know when you started these house shows, I was telling you off air that they possibly one of my favorite things is every month seeing what the next Who's show was. How many more do you reckon that you guys have got in you?
I had a list of notes in my phone, and that's probably been the last maybe 6 or 7 shows that we've done, and the list was slowly running out. So I put a post on one of the training pages the other day and said, guys, any more Who's names, please just send them through. And I think there was close to 60 comments. So we're not running out of names. Some of them were really cringe, and I'd definitely like to delete those comments off the post. But some of them were good value, and I'll definitely be using some of them in the future. Because I know I think we've got another Who's party in April. I think it's the 10th. Obviously, it's not released yet, but yeah, there's a name ready to go. So there's plenty of names in the bag.
Have you done a Halloween one called like the callers coming from inside the house?
Yeah, like we have so many Halloween ones ready, but
Yeah,
it's just so hard. It's so hard for us to do a Halloween hoose because
you do the other show.
the huge anniversary shows usually on the night of or before Halloween. So we could do a late one or an early one.
Mm,
Yeah, around that time we're usually promoting the big show.
yeah, you can always do like a Friday the 13th show. There you go.
That could be good. We'll take it.
He's retired from booking, still doing it. Mate, it's been great having you on. Thanks again for dropping by. For people that want to follow Headhunter Rig, because it's hard to find matches on YouTube, I'll tell you that now from experience. So if they want to catch all your stuff, what's the best way they can do it, mate?
So Facebook wise, I think it's just at Headhunter Rig. Instagram will be at headhunter.rig. And I think Twitter is at the Chief Rig. That's sort of my main ones right now. I've got a wrestler merch store as well, with I think 2 new shirts hopefully coming in the next 2 weeks as well. Sort of getting back into the swing of things. So I think they would just be on wrestler merch under New South Wales Wrestlers Headhunter Rig. And other than that, just come and see me.
I know one of your shirts that you did that was one of my favorites is the one you had with the trophy.
Yeah, crazy good.
Yeah, so very good. And yeah. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Wrestler merch are doing so much at the moment for you guys, just workers trying to help you get your merch out there and helping you sell it. Because 2 or 3 years ago, it was almost unheard of for guys, a lot of guys to have their own merch. There'd be the scant 3 or 4 guys maybe on a show that would have a shirt or something like that. And for people at home that don't know, like we all don't make a hell of a lot of money from shows. So it really like selling shirts and sort of that really does help subsidize these guys in their endeavors, in their training and all that sort of stuff. So hit up wrestlermerch.com and get one of Headhunter Rig shirts. See someone else's shirt, get that as well. But we're talking to him tonight, so get his shirt now.
Sure, yeah. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, mate.
All good, brother. Thanks for having me.
Once again, big thanks to my guest, Headhunter Rig. Please do follow him on all your socials if you can. If he's wrestling anywhere near you, go out and check him out because he is really, I love this dude's style. Straight up, I'll tell you right now, I am a big fan of his work because his work is believable. Like, you can believe that this guy is out there doing what he's doing to his opponents. Such a credible offense, such a credible character. Big fan of this guy. Follow him on all your socials. Go to wrestlermerch.com, pick up all of his shirts. Go and support the guy because he has a big future in the world of professional wrestling. Once again, though, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to WRA. It's free. You can do it on iTunes or Apple Podcasts now, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you get your podcasts from. We're there. If you do stop by Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating. And so I keep forgetting now that it's not iTunes anymore. It's Apple Podcasts. If you do stop by there, please give us a rating and review while you're there. Give us a 5-star. Helps us get inside more ears and get out there to spread the word about professional wrestling in this country. Also, if you're on Facebook, make sure you like us on Wrestle Radio Australia or on Twitter at Wrestle Radio AU or me personally at Beast Eastman. Also, we're on Instagram at Wrestle Radio AU as well. If you want to support the local industry, please subscribe to one of the streaming sites. Australian Wrestling Network, of course, is one of them. Go to the Fight app and subscribe to or follow PCW so you know where all their shows are coming up. PWA now on Fight app. Go and follow them and you'll know where all their stuff is coming up to be able to watch. Right City Wrestling, of course, have their own YouTube channel that they put up all their shows in a timely manner. So please do go and follow those guys. If you want to support the wrestlers themselves, the best way to do it is go to wrestlermerch.com and cop some of the stuff. Or if you can't do that, if they don't have something up on there, message the wrestler on their Facebook pages, on their social medias, and say, where can I get your merch from? I want to support you guys. We really do need to get around each other in this time. If you can, please do go out and support them. If you want to support us, well, there's no real way to support us. If you go to redbubble.com and search Wrestle Radio Australia, I have some shirts up on there, just Wrestle Radio Australia shirts. Anything that gets made from those shirts goes to two charities, Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life, which are two charities that I support and that I really do get behind here at the show. If anyone who's been following the show for a decent amount of time do know that how much that Gotcha for Life and Beyond Blue do support the stuff that we're really passionate about here at WRA Australia, and that is men's health and suicide prevention and talking about having issues and talking about your problems and all of that sort of stuff. So anything that I make from those goes directly to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life. Anyway, that will do it for this week here at WRA Australia. Until next week, I'm Todd Eastman. That's my opinion, and you're entitled to it. We'll see you next week.
Let's be busy 23, got me feeling way too sweet. Oh, yeah. Too sweet, put your fangs up. Too sweet, pour another cup. Let's be busy 23.